Good evening, councilors, good evening, senior management, and good evening to the residents and guests of our town tonight. I see we have quorum, so I call this meeting of March the 18th in session. And all those that can, and we will ask them to stand, and the clerk will lead us in the singing of O Canada.
O Canada, our home and native land, true faith and love in all us command. With glowing hearts we see the true song and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
It gets better every week. Okay. Pecuniary interest. Oh, no, approval of the agenda. Okay. So after looking at the agenda, council, we have some changes, I believe.
I have two that have been filed.
Okay, we have two changes to the agenda that have been filed. One a motion put forward by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Stewart, that the agenda for March 18th, 2019 regular meeting of council be amended by moving the following agenda items for consideration immediately following agenda item 5.1.2, water and wastewater budget presentation. Item 11, right?
Sorry. Just after 5.1.2, it'll be item 11.2.2.
Okay. So immediately following agenda item 5.1.2, there will be item 11.2.2, the engineer's report, Poth Street culvert replacement, Big Creek drain. So that will be after 5.12.
You just want to call the question on that?
Yes. All those in favor of this motion? All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And the second motion put forward by Councillor Chofie, seconded by Councillor Hahn, that we suspend the rules of Section 18, delegations and presentations of Bylaw 3427-2013, being a bylaw to govern the proceedings of the Town of Pelham Council, its committees, the conduct of its members, and the calling of meetings, to allow Bill Heska to speak about controlling cannabis and its impacts to the community. All those in favor of this motion? All those opposed? Motion carries. So now we
So now you call for the if there are no further amendments.
Okay. Motion put forward by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that the agenda for the March 18th, 2019 regular meeting of council be adopted as amended. All those in favor? Okay, all those opposed? So we're good to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we go with presentation.
Pecuniary interest.
Yes, of course. Another question I must ask, after viewing the agenda, is there any councillor that has a pecuniary interest or general nature thereof to declare? Oh, Councillor Chofie.
Yeah, while I support the interim control bylaw and the creation of the bylaws to address cannabis production in the municipality, I have considered all presentations and information presented to me on this matter of 4.3, the Cannabis Advisory Committee, and 5.2.4, and I've made my decision based on the basis of that information.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor.
So for this meeting, Mr. Mayor, that will be for item 5.2.4. The other one will be for PMP.
Okay, so 5.2.4, and then the otother one is for an item in PP.
Yeah,
He'll need
thank
to
you.
disclose it again at that meeting.
Okay.
Okay. Councillor Hildebrand.
Well, I support the interim control bylaw and the creation of bylaws to address cannabis production in the municipality. I have considered all presentations and information presented to me on the matter of 5.2.4 and have made my decision based on the basis of that information.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Stewart.
While I support the interim control bylaw and the creation of bylaws to address cannabis production in the municipality, I have considered all presentations and information presented to me on the matter of 5.24 and have made my decision based on the basis of that information.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Oh, Councillor Wink.
Under item 11.2.3, survey analysis of the Hay Street property, I live 6 doors away from the Hay Street property, and any decisions could impact the value of my own property, so I will declare conflict of interest on that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other? No? No? Okay, thank
Feeling
you.
left out?
Okay, so now we are to hear presentations. And so the first one is Mr. Slate. Okay. So the first one we are going to hear is the drainage engineer's report on Paw Street. Before we do that, I just have to read this article. Excuse me. We will receive a presentation from the drainage engineer with regard to the Paw Street culvert replacement on the Big Creek Drain. Later in the agenda this evening, Council will consider the engineer's report for the culvert replacement project. The proposed culverts will replace 2 culverts that have failed on Paw Street, causing the closure of Paw Street in 2017. We will hear from Mr. John Spreet of Spreet Associates, who is the engineer that prepared the engineer's report for this work on the municipal drain. Mr. Spreet will present the report and will describe what the proposed drainage works will be, as well as describe which property owners will receive allowances. Following Mr. Spreet's presentation, council members may have questions for the engineer. We will then hear from any members of the public regarding any comments they may have with regards to the engineer's report. Copies of the engineer's report were made available to benefiting property owners in advance of tonight's meeting. Council members may have questions for the public. After we have heard from the public, Mr. Spreet will respond to the public comments, and council members may have additional questions for the engineer. Excuse me. After we have heard from the public and the drainage engineer, council will consider the staff report. So without further ado, we will call on Mr. Spreet.
Thank you. Tonight's meeting is the consideration of the Big Creek Drain Paw Street Culvert. So under the Drainage Act, there's the on-site meeting, which we had last year, and then there's the consideration meeting, which is tonight. That happens after the engineer's report's filed, and then there'll be a subsequent meeting in 20 to 30 days, and that's called the quarter revision. That deals with assessments. This meeting tonight deals with the construction. So the Big Creek Drain is an existing municipal drain within the municipality. It's governed by a bylaw on the books of the municipality, and from what we know, the last time a report was filed was 1974. As the mayor said, the existing culvert failed on the road, and we were appointed through a request of the municipality to prepare a new report, prepare a design for that crossing under Paw Street under the Drainage Act. So our process involves having an on-site meeting, having, meeting with the various landowners, doing a survey, coming up with a design, preparing it all in a report, and presenting it tonight. So what we're proposing to do is replace the existing culverts, which have failed under Paw Street, with new culverts. We're proposing to install 3 culverts rather than the 2, and that's because based on the hydrology, based on the watershed area upstream, and the requirements of the bridge code, it dictates a certain size. So when you calculate that, it requires 3 pipes. So we're proposing to install 3 pipes across Paw Street, approximately 25 meters long and 3,000 millimeters in diameter. In addition to that, we'll be redoing the road bed, the side slopes, proper riprap protection, proper cutoff walls, guide rail, and all that stuff. We are constructing it in order to have a proper road width. We are bringing the side slopes and the edge of the pipes onto the neighboring lands. So we are paying, under the Drainage Act, allowances to the abutting landowners in the sum of approximately $3,500, split between both. It depends on the land area that we occupy with the works. The more land area, the more we pay in allowances. So that's why you see on page 6, one landowner is getting $2,100, the other one's getting $1,300. The total estimated cost of the works is approximately $390,000. That includes the allowances, soils consultants, contingency, conservation authority fees, and the actual work itself. Are there any questions or comments?
Yeah, Councillor.
Yeah. How conservative is your estimate for this work based on your past experience?
Well, through your worship, we speak to local contractors. We ask them for budget prices on stuff. We've spoken to local suppliers for steel, manufacturers. So we have our estimates fairly fair. I think it's a good estimate.
Councillor Trophy.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. The administration cost of $56,645, is that the cost for the engineering, or what else is included in that?
That's the cost for everything. There's so the municipality pays net HST. That includes the permit fees from the Niagara Region Conservation Authority. That's the engineering fee. It's expenses, supervision, layout, all that stuff.
Okay, you have a separate line for the HST, so that,
Yeah, sorry, I was just going under the administration section.
okay. Go.
So if I may, I have a question. While the work is being done, will you have a representative on site, or will the tender spell out enough that the contractor himself will be able to just do the work without any supervision as such?
No, it'll be through your worship. It'll be a combination of both.
I see.
We will provide layout, show them where they, have to put the pipes. On key times, we'll come down and, inspect the works and, obviously do a final inspection as well.
Another one, but this, if it's a wet year and there's constant flow, can the work still be done, in your opinion?
It would be, the works can still be done. It'll just be more difficult. You'll have more, you could have more costs. It would be best to do it in times of dry conditions.
Yeah.
The soil's not great there, so, and it's a big watershed, it's a big creek. So if, you can do that in the summertime, that would be the most ideal time to do it.
And then one more, because that is a drain, a man-made drain, I believe, will there be a timeline in the summer that would be done be taken in the Fish Act or Ocean and Fisheries or whatever?
Correct, yeah, they'll have to, we have to follow what the guidelines of the DFO said, I believe, on page, I don't have the page number. We did speak to the DFO, and you do have to, have DFO approval, so
Okay.
they set out guidelines, timelines.
Okay, and so that's usually in July, August that you would carry that out then?
Generally, yes, yeah, just because it's a municipal drain, it's still, it was a natural water course upon one time, and it was made into a municipal drain, it was incorporated. That doesn't exempt us from following, DFO and Conservation Authority rules and regulations.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, once construction gets started, how long would construction take?
I would estimate it would probably take 4 weeks, somewhere in there. You know, I would expect that the contractor would, you know, have the material on site, you know, have the pipes ordered, and, you know, I would think he'd probably take about 4 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Trophy?
For you, Mr. Mayor, I might have missed something, but I just want to clarify. Will you be putting this out to tender, or will the town Director of Public Works be putting this out to tender? Like I say, your estimate is that the cost of the work is $327, and you already talked to some contractors, budgetary pricing. So are we going out, or like who's doing the tendering?
I believe it'll be tendered through your worship. It'll be tendered through the town.
Okay, so you're responsible just for the engineering of it then, correct?
And we also inspect it to ensure that it's built to the, you know, the standards in our report.
Okay. Yep.
Thank you. Okay, so council is done with the questions, and now from the public. Oh, we do this?
We're gonna receive that first.
Okay, we have a motion. Motion put forward by Councilor Hildebrand, seconded by Councilor Wink. Be it resolved that council receive the presentation by Sprite and Associates regarding the Pot Street culvert replacement for information. Without any further discussion, all those in favor? And those opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, now you call on the public.
Public?
Yep.
Yep. And now we will ask if there's anyone in the public who has any questions for the presenter. Now is the time to ask them. Going once, yep, yes, sir.
I just got one question. You got 2 pipes coming in to 3 and 2 pipes going out. Why do we need 3 pipes in the middle?
We have, you're talking about the upstream roads, the upstream and the downstream roads, because we have
You're
2.
talking about 3 pipes in under the road, and you got 2 pipes coming in and 2 pipes going out. Why do we need 3 pipes in the middle?
Well, through your worship, we need 3 pipes because based on the watershed area, the slope of the drain, the channel, all that stuff, the bridge code dictates that you have to design it for a 1 in 50-year storm. So when you do all the calculations and all the math based on the parameters there, that dictates 3 pipes.
So should we put another pipe with the other 2 drains as well? So we have 3, 3, and 3?
Well, I would think that in the future, if anything was done on them, they should be, you know, looked at and sized under the bridge code, and if that's required, then they would do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Going once? Going 3 times. Okay, thank you. We now have a motion put forward by Councilor Trophy, seconded by Councilor Wink. Be it resolved that council receive the information presented by members of the public relating to the Pot Street culvert replacement. All those in favor of that motion? All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
And now you're moving to the engineer's report that was moved up on the agenda.
Okay. So, motion put forward by Councilor Trophy, seconded by Councilor Wink. Now we're looking at agenda 11.22. Be it resolved that council receive this report regarding the engineer's report, Poth Street culvert replacement, Big Creek drain, and that council endorses the engineer's report by Sprite Associates, Big Creek drain, Poth Street, dated March 1st, 2019, and that staff be directed to bring a bylaw forward to council for first and second reading, providing provisional approval of the engineer's report at the next meeting of council. Any further discussion on this report? Okay, all those in favor? And all those opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Who do we know? No, chapter, cover unlimited. Oh, right there.
So now we are Trout Unlimited.
And the next presenter will be Niagara Trout Unlimited. Brian Green is doing the presenting.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, staff, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you tonight about some of the work that we're doing and to propose a partnership with the town with regard to that work. There we go. Trout Unlimited Canada is a national conservation organization based in Calgary and Guelph. It's dedicated to the preservation and enhancement of Canada's cold water resources. We in Canada tend to take our water for granted quite a bit, and the result of that has been the loss of quite a lot of our most precious water, which is spring-fed, year-round cold water. We are Trout Unlimited because trout are the best indicator species of healthy water, of cold, clear water, undisturbed and unpolluted. So we could be Bass Unlimited or something else, but that would not address the issue of our mission, which is to preserve and protect and enhance Canada's cold water resources. In Niagara, there's only one game in town. The only remaining spring-fed, year-round cold water stream in Niagara is 12 Mile Creek. There were others. They've all been degraded to the point where they no longer qualify as cold water streams. The Niagara chapter, of course, has adopted 12 Mile Creek as our main project. And again, trout being the best indicator of healthy water, brook trout are the best of the best. Brook trout are the most fragile of the trout species. They are also the only native trout to this region, in the streams of this region. We have brown trout and rainbow trout, as you may know. Brook trout are the only native trout to this area. The other two were introduced. Brook trout were once very plentiful in 12 Mile Creek. We get reports all the time of people whose grandparents brought home half a dozen for breakfast. We shudder to think. But that is no longer the case. Brook trout are now surviving in a few isolated pockets of 12 Mile Creek where they are still more or less undisturbed. 12 Mile Creek really needs help. And 12 Mile Creek is centered very largely in Pelham. As you can see from the map, Highway 20 cuts down along the diagonal there, and the darker green area more or less reveals where 12 Mile Creek is. 12 Mile Creek has two branches. One begins in Marlene Stewart Street Park, right out here, and the other one just a little bit east of that. And then it flows down through Short Hills Park, where it joins with water directly from Lake Erie via the DeQ generating station, and then exits into Lake Ontario at Port Dalhousie. But it's interesting to note how much of 12 Mile Creek is Pelham's responsibility. It's also interesting to note that that map almost resembles a pair of lungs, and that's not a bad analogy. We all know that forests are the lungs of the planet. 12 Mile Creek, the valleys of 12 Mile Creek shelter a very wild and forested area that could very well be thought of as lungs. I'd like to just spend a few minutes acquainting you with some of the projects that the Niagara chapter of Trout Unlimited has undertaken, with an eye toward, again, looking at how we can partner on further projects in the future, since Pelham is so much a vital part of 12 Mile Creek. The Metler Road pond conversions were our first project. Ponds on line, ponds that interrupt the flow of the creek, are very bad for the watershed. The sun hits the surface of the creek, warms the water, and then that water flows over the surface down into the next pond where it's warmed again, finally into the creek, about 5 to 10 degrees warmer than it was when it came in. This is extremely bad as brook trout die at 22 degrees. They suffer at 20. They can breed only below 17. So warm water is extremely bad for trout. It's extremely bad for an aquatic system. So we have at the far left what the ponds look like to begin with. You see a top draw overflow. That is, the water flows through that overflow when it gets high enough, and that warm water then goes down to the next pond. So our solution was to draw the cold water from the bottom of the pond and send that down to the next stream and then down into the stream itself. So it was quite a major construction job. We got grants to do it. You can see the solution that we came up with, and that's the result today. And the other result is invisible, but it's a reduction in the temperature of the stream, which flows down from the ponds. Another one of our projects was to build spawning beds for trout. In this case, we discovered upwellings in a swampy area of cold water, channeled those upwellings down through pipes into the stream, covered those upwellings then with gravel, and so when the trout come into that stretch, they see gravel, which is very suitable for spawning, and percolating up through the gravel is cold water drawn down through the pipes, and that is ideal spawning ground for trout. So that was another one of our projects.
Hey, Brian,
Sorry.
could you stay near the mic just
Sorry.
so we could pick you up on the recording?
Sure.
Oh, thank you.
My broadcast career is over. Another one of our projects was to create wing deflectors. Now, in this case, the stream had become very wide and very, very shallow, which is unsuitable for both the trout, but also very, very damaging for the stream itself, for the health of the stream. What we want is some quick water, some deep pools, and some meanders. So we artificially created meanders using these wing deflectors. We felled ash trees, put them interrupted the stream in a V shape, causing the stream to meander around them, and got the desired effect. This also was an extremely big project, some $250,000 for this and a couple of others, but it's big work. Finally, this project received quite a bit of publicity, was on the cover of the St. Catharines Standard, if you saw it. We had at the far left, a clay cliff that when it rained, that clay just swept right down into the creek, which you can see right down at the bottom of the cliff. So we, again, using grant money, dug trenches along the face of the cliff, installed live branches, then seeded the whole cliff, and then covered it with what is called core matting. It's coconut fiber, will eventually dissolve, but that will give it enough stability, we hope, that eventually the grasses and so on that we seeded will be able to take hold and stabilize that entire cliff. Again, a fairly large project. So what is our vision for the town of Pelham as a partner with Trout Unlimited? We would ask that you pass a resolution stating something to the effect that the town of Pelham will consider the health, the aquatic health of 12 Mile Creek in all its practices, policies, and procedures. Now, as part of your package, I believe you will see a letter of understanding that we created with Andrea Clemencio, the former Public Works Director, that set out the framework of such a partnership. With the departure of Andrea, that has kind of been a bit lost, but I understand that the letter is still existent, that it is still under consideration, and that maybe the new Public Works Director, Jason, would be able to revive it and perhaps bring it forward to your attention in the future. We would also ask that you include the health of 12 Mile Creek as a priority in your strategic plan. The strategic plan, as I understand it, is nearly complete and is before you. This would be a perfect opportunity to include the health of this vital aquatic system in your strategic plan. And finally, we ask that you use us. Use our expertise and fundraising abilities to enhance 12 Mile Creek. And I know that most of the delegations that come before you are probably asking for money. We're asking to give you money. We ask that you work with us where development will affect the creek. We have the expertise. We work with people both from Niagara College and private fluvial geomorphologists, and they can help us help you to place development and appropriate development for the health of 12 Mile Creek. We would ask that we be involved in such items as road maintenance, snow removal, culvert replacement, and so on, and then even larger projects. And of course, I'm speaking of things like the Sulphur Springs Road. So all of those things, we feel we can help. We feel we can be part of a good partnership with the town of Pelham, and we ask that you consider that a partnership like that could bring about a reputation for Pelham as a sustainable, watershed-friendly, natural design and development community. I think that the procedure, I'm not just sure, and you'll have to guide me here, the procedure might be that you receive this, this presentation and ask staff to follow up on it. But I leave that, of course, in your hands. That's your expertise.
Thank you, Brian, for that presentation. Very interesting. Before I open up the council, I will make one statement, and that is somewhat related to this. Excuse me. A friend of mine spent last week in Aspen, Colorado, and I don't know the name of the river, but they have a river that goes right through the middle of the town, and they do not use any salt on their roads. It's all they're permitted to put in there is finely ground gravel, and no salt because that will harm the stream. Yeah. So
we have many instances where the creek, where 12 Mile Creek, I mean, this is a fragile cold water stream. Roads cross it, and what's the Works Department to do? They shovel the snow into the creek, and that snow contains salt. And imagine brook trout struggling for survival as it is, getting a dose of salt.
yes. Any questions from the council? No questions. Okay, then Ryan, we'll just thank you for that presentation.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Excellent. And before you go down, sit down, so tell us how successful on the erosion, when was that done, and are you seeing positive results?
The cliff?
Yes.
Yeah. The cliff was only done last fall.
Oh, okay.
Actually, when we went out to do it with some whole pile of volunteers, there was snow on the ground, so it was that late in the fall. The snow melted during the day, but we anxiously await the results of that. We will see. It certainly was done professionally. We've done everything in our ability to make it work. But we'll be very interested in the spring to see how the grass has come up through that core matting and how well the trees have taken that were put in the troughs, how well those trees have taken and helped to stabilize the banks. We have another challenge in that particular area in that there's a huge abundance of deer. And they love to feed on everything we plant. So we're hoping that this cliff is perhaps too steep for them and that maybe the core matting will do the trick.
Great.
But we'll let you know in a year or two.
Okay, without any more questions, I will have a motion put forward by Councillor Hildebrandt, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that the delegation by Niagara chapter of Trout Unlimited Canada be received and referred to staff, and that staff be directed to prepare a report for council consideration in April 2019 regarding the potential for a partnership between the town of Pelham and Trout Unlimited Canada, yes. All those in favor of this motion? All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay. The next delegation is from Brock University, and it's about geoparks.
Thank you.
And Darren, I would say your last name, but I've been known to butcher them. Maybe you could say it for us.
It's Platicus,
Okay,
just
thank
the way
you.
it's spelled.
Okay, thank you. Continue.
Thank you, Mayor, councilors, staff, and people in the gallery. My name is Darren Platicus, and I am the founder and chief executive officer of an organization called Geospatial Niagara. And I am also a member of the Oniagara steering committee, and my colleague Ian is here with me today. And Phil Davis, our indigenous culture liaison, is on vacation in British Columbia, so he sends his regrets. Thank you for inviting us. We are here to provide you with essentially a Coles Notes of what a UNESCO Global Geopark is, and more specifically about the Oniagara Aspiring Global Geopark project. By the end of the presentation, we are seeking the endorsement of Council of the Oniagara Aspiring Geopark, and as we gather support across the region for this project and the application process. UNESCO Global Geoparks are unified geographical areas with geology of international significance. And geoparks are not solely about the geology, but it's how the geology has impacted the culture and the industry of the area where they are located. They're a bottom-up approach of combining conservation with sustainable development while involving local communities, and it's becoming increasingly popular globally. Currently, Canada has 3 UNESCO Global Geoparks. The first one is in St. John, New Brunswick. It's called Stonehammer Geopark, which became a global geopark in 2010. The second global geopark in Canada was Tumbler Ridge in Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia. That came on board in 2014. And the most recent global geopark in Canada is the one in Percé, Quebec. And that became a global geopark in 2018. Currently, there are 2 other global geoparks that have just submitted their applications to UNESCO in Europe, and those are Discovery Global Geopark in Bonavista, Newfoundland, and the Eclipse of Fundy Global Geopark in Nova Scotia. So that leaves us with 6 other aspiring global geoparks across Canada, and we are one of 3 in Ontario. Sudbury, Big Impact, aspiring global geopark, and the Temiskaming Rift Valley on the border of Ontario and Quebec. Each and every global geopark strives to incorporate and promote the global geopark pillars within their respective geoparks management plans. These include education, sustainable responsible tourism, cultural awareness, and geoconservation and geotourism. UNESCO encourages cooperation with existing UNESCO designated areas, working with the Biosphere Reserve, for example, and building relationships across Canada and around the world, sharing best practices and other forms of research. Promotion and education as it relates to culture is particularly important in the establishment of a UNESCO Global Geopark, not only for our local Indigenous communities, but also for other cultures that call Niagara home as well. So, why Niagara? The escarpment in Niagara has driven our earliest industries and provides the perfect climate, making us Canada's fruit belt. Our wines are world-renowned, and our craft breweries and distilleries are increasing in popularity. The Welland Canal exists because of the Niagara escarpment, and stone for the construction of our most historical canal locks, as well as construction of the most historical buildings in our communities, came directly from the Niagara Escarpment. From farmers markets to hiking and cycling, Niagara is more than what the typical tourist sees. And we see that we are fast becoming a four-season experience destination. Niagara is on the forefront of research in agriculture, sustainability, and a host of other disciplines that are prominent in other global geoparks. And designation would provide another incentive for our post-secondary institutions to attract master's and postdoctoral students. Specifically for Pelham, we obviously have the Comfort Maple, but Fawn Hill itself is the Fawn Hill Cane, which is a glacial feature that is the highest point in Niagara. There is a strong cycling community with an extensive cycling network, and as well as the Pelham Summerfest and places to stay like Bissell's Hideaway. And there's an extensive agricultural heritage here as well, with new and emerging industries, and of course we have plenty of nature and recreational trails. So the application dossier typically follows this format. There is a formal self-evaluation, and an application goes to the Canadian Geoparks Network. Their committee reviews the application and sends a couple visitors to here to sort of vet the application and evaluate it. We be operational for 1 year as an aspiring global geopark, and at which time that application gets sent to UNESCO, and they send two evaluators to evaluate the application and review it, and then sometime after that is when UNESCO designation is achieved. We have several awareness and promotional opportunities that we're working on. One is the 10th International Cool Climate Wine Symposium being held at Brock University. We have the 2021 Canada Summer Games that we are really hoping to capitalize on across Canada for promotion of global geoparks, especially when you consider the following two Canada Summer Games will be in destinations that have current global geoparks. 2024, there's a total solar eclipse that goes right across the Niagara region. And if anybody remembers the total solar eclipse that happened across the United States last February, a year ago February, there was a lot of tourism that went from the peripheries of the nation into that line. So there will be a lot of people looking to stargaze and look at the solar eclipse from here. And of course, the most recent announcement is the 2026 World Cup, which is coming to Toronto, but I'm sure being so close to Niagara Falls, there will be a lot of people that are visiting for the World Cup coming down here as well. So we are a work in progress, and in conclusion, the Oniakara Aspiring Global Geopark is an opportunity for all of Niagara to work together to promote what makes our communities in a region unique among other UNESCO Global Geoparks around the world. And it offers us an ability to educate ourselves and the world about the region humanity has called home for about 12,000 years, and we are truly unique from the ground up. Thank you.
Okay, so if I could just say a few things. So you've come here tonight and you made a presentation and you're going to all the other municipalities, and then what's your next step from there?
Our next step is to officially incorporate as a nonprofit organization that you have to do through this procedure.
Yes.
And then it is acquiring and bringing on a number of stakeholders, like putting our board of directors together as well. We currently have a steering committee, but we will be looking forward to putting together a board of directors for this. And just making a lot of community contacts, whether it's tourism operators, farmers, local artisans and things like that, groups like that, in order to sort of fill out the roster. Global geoparks are made up of a series of geosites, And so for sake of the argument, we have 24 geosites, 2 in each municipality. It is looking for those sites within those municipalities that could be attractive for people that want to experience what Niagara has to offer beyond the typical destinations in Niagara. So it's not about stealing any thunder from any municipality, but it's extending the lengths of stays that people come to Niagara for. So where it might typically be a 1 or 2 day stay, that stay now is extended to 3, 4, maybe 5 days to sort of get that full Niagara experience.
So the question, if you want to, I'll use the C word, commercialize a site, whether it, I'm thinking in just top of my head, let's say you want to do rock climbing down in Balls Falls or something, is that something like, or something on the Niagara Escarpment, is that something like what you're looking at? Because if you're thinking of doing that, you've got a lot of government regulations that are, and regulatories that you
Right.
have to go through. How would you do something on site, each individual site, to promote that more, or just promote what we have better?
So global geoparks are not about creating more infrastructure. It's the sustainable development side of things. It is maximizing the infrastructure you already have.
Okay.
So being a global geopark has no legislative designation attached to it. No development is impeded, as long as that development complies with the municipal, regional, provincial, federal laws and indigenous laws. So if an organization wanted to do a zip line in Balls Falls, that would be between the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority and the Niagara Escarpment Commission,
Okay.
and we would have no,
Okay, you wouldn't be involved in
wouldn't be
that.
involved in that at all.
Okay, thank you. Here I am hogging it. And do any of the councilors, Council Wayne?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, where do you get the funding for this initiative? And where's the funding coming from going forward?
So the funding for this initiative, through you, Mr. Mayor, is currently we would be working with a lot of grant applications as well, but we are looking forward to it being self-sustaining in the way that tourism operators would participate in promoting it. So it might be like a licensing fee to use that UNESCO designation. We're also looking at memberships, either corporate sponsorships and the like. We don't want, if it's one thing we don't want to be doing is consistently coming back asking for funding. It's going to be, we would like it to be self-sustaining going into the future.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Hahn.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure that I fully understand what folks are going to be doing. So I'm just looking at some of the pictures. So we've got the Comfort Maple, we've got Morningstar Mill, we've got Bissell's Hideaway, Summerfest. So essentially, you're just promoting some of the tourism that we already offer. So how do you differ then? Like, what are people doing? They're camping out at the Comfort Maple. Like, what is it that they're doing for 3 or 4 days, as you mentioned? Like, they're doing what? They're just going to these places that they already know exist because it's promoted through Tourism Niagara. So how do you differ between Tourism Niagara and your organization? What's the difference?
We expect to be working very closely with Tourism Niagara, and we've already spoken to representatives of Tourism Niagara. It's a really good question. We use the pictures just as examples of some of the attractive features that Pelham has. Mm-hmm. We've got a total of around about 75 of these, what we call geosites. So, for example, St. John's would be a geosite because it's there because of the geology. Right? It's there also because it's really attractive and people want to come. So if we can sort of, the whole point of this is to increase geo and ecotourism across Niagara, building on top of what has already been done in Niagara Falls and Niagara on the Lake. Niagara on the Lake with the wine industry and the culture. Niagara Falls because it's a family destination. The typical tourist operator worldwide looks at Niagara as a one-day, Niagara Falls as a one-day trip on a shopping expedition to Toronto. That's how it's packaged. Okay, you obviously know that already, but the point is to expand the brand, if you like. I hate to, well, that sounds bad, but to extend the brand of Niagara Falls and Niagara on the Lake to include Pelham, to include Wainfleet, to include all the municipalities focused on these geo sites. We're not saying necessarily that a campground is going to be a geo site, but the campground could benefit if St. John's, for example, was a geo site. You see what I mean? And if people are here, they're going to want to come and see the Comfort Maple, right? And maybe they're going to bring their bikes and take their families on a trip around the cycle routes that are used during the Canada Games. those sorts of things. Does that sort of...
So sort of a wine tour, it's a tour based on various environmental and geology.
So eco and geotourism are two big things.
Gotcha.
And promoted globally
Yeah,
through the network.
yeah.
Gotcha. Thanks.
So if I could sort of expand on that a little bit, there are about 140 global geoparks around the world. Currently, there are only 3 in Canada, and there are only 7 in the entire Western Hemisphere. The other 4 are there's 2 in Mexico, one's in Brazil, and one's in Paraguay. So the vast bulk of global geoparks are in Europe and in China and Southeast Asia. And it's basically now for us, it would be getting in on the ground floor as global geoparks come to North America and South America.
So if I could, when I was at the seminar at Brock, and of course Brock is a big part behind this, I sort of had the impression, and maybe I was completely wrong, you can help me out here, I thought maybe that they were promoting that possibly at Brock you would have a central, for lack of a better word, because it doesn't do it justice, a central information booth that people could go and see the geo features there and then decide to go out from there. Is that what you're thinking or not even close?
There may be a kiosk of sorts at Brock, and we'd have to discuss that with them. But for the vast majority of the site and the promotion of it it's promoted at the site already, or on the website. The Oniakra website, or through other means like the Grimsby Gateway or those types of places as well. So again, it's not creating more infrastructure, it's maximizing the infrastructure. So a kiosk at Balls Falls or a kiosk at, maybe Pelham Town Hall out the side of the door, out by the entranceway type of thing.
Yes. Okay, great. Oh, thank you. Any other questions for the gentleman? Okay. So you're here tonight asking for us to endorse the geopark concept. So we have here a motion that we receive for information, but we can't, Madam Clerk, we can amend that.
You can call for an amendment,
Oh,
Mr.
okay.
Mayor.
So Council will call for an amendment that instead of receiving this from information, where is that? We could pass a resolution to receive, receive for information, so if council looking to endorse, we will need to have an amendment. So we have, if we're going to endorse this, we have to have an amendment saying so. Would anyone, councillor, put forward that amendment? Is that how we do that, Madam Clerk?
Yes, so right now, the motion that was presented with the agenda is to receive the presentation for information. So if council wants to do anything further, then we'd need an amendment.
Okay. Does any councillor want to put forth this amendment? No. Well, I guess then we will just, if not doing so, then we will accept your presentation to be proceed for information then, gentlemen. And we'll thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Question on the motion?
I'm sorry?
You need to call the
Yeah,
question.
yeah. So this motion has been put together or put forward by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that the delegation by Darren Platicus regarding the Pelham Okinikara presentation be received for information. All those in favor? Okay, all those opposed? Okay, carries. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now we have to pass another motion for Bill Hess.
Not yet.
Oh, okay. Yes, so the next presentation is by a Paul Robertson, representing Trees Unlimited, and he will be talking about a hungry pest, the gypsy moth. Oh, yes, it's all yours. Robertson, sorry.
Yes, good evening, council, staff, guests. I am here tonight with Dan Haupt from Zimmer Air Services, and we're just going to provide you some background on the gypsy moth infestation that's in the Niagara Peninsula and specifically in Pelham. I have about a dozen slides I'll quickly go through just so people are familiar with what the gypsy moth is. Just show of hands, how many have had gypsy moth on their property in the last year? 1, 2, 3. Very good. So I'll just quickly go through the history, the life cycle, and what trees are affected, and some of the proposal, what we're proposing in terms of treatment. Quickly, gypsy moth came from Europe. 1869, it was an entrepreneur who was trying to mate the European gypsy moth with the American silkworm after the Civil War, and when that wasn't successful, he just released the European gypsy moth. There it is there. It's quite easy to identify. It has a series of pairs of red dots on the front and a series of red dots on the back, and it has very long hairs. It gets about the size of your ring finger when it's fully, the larva is fully sized. In Ontario, it was identified in 1969 out in eastern Ontario. We've had a variety of different outbreaks since then. The most recent was in 2009, but it really started in 1988 and 1989. In 2018, there was in the Golden Horseshoe, there was about 37,000 acres of moderate to severe defoliation, again, primarily in the Niagara Peninsula. There's the photo. You can see the red. There's a pink there. The red is intense, severe. The pink is moderate. The size of the infestation in 2017 was about 12,000 hectares, and it was more into Toronto, Burlington, Hamilton, and then a little bit further into the southwest. There's the life cycle. Right now we're in the egg mass stage, which is sort of in the top left-hand corner. It's going to hatch in the eggs. The eggs are going to hatch in late April. The caterpillar will start to feed right through the spring and summer into August. Early August, then it'll pupate, and the moth will emerge. They'll mate, and they'll lay another egg mass. There are about 100 eggs per egg mass. There's a good photo of the egg mass in the beige. The hairs from the caterpillar cover the egg mass and protect it through the winter, and you can see the caterpillars are just emerging, and that is what they call the first end star. The thing that's interesting about that end star is the caterpillars, they know that there are way too many in a forest, so they go up the tree, they produce a thread, and they balloon from forest to forest, and they can travel anywhere from 5 to 50 kilometers, depending on the winds in the springtime. They feed mostly at night, but once they get large enough, they feed both day and night. They consume almost everything. Once they start feeding, they eat about a square meter of foliage per summer. And there are 7 end stars. And each time the caterpillar grows, it sheds its skin and gets larger until the 7th end star, and then they pupate and they move into the moth stage. There's the most preferred species. The number one really is oak, but the gypsy moth eats almost everything. Really, there's only one species that I know of in the peninsula, and that's tulip tree that it doesn't eat, but everything else it does, including conifers. The thing is, gypsy moth, you can see the numbers. Of course, you can get into the hundreds of millions on your property. They will completely defoliate the tree. The big difference between gypsy moth and the other defoliating insects in the springtime, tent caterpillar, cankerworm, is that they end their feeding in June. Mid-June, third week of June. The gypsy moth continues right through to the end of July. The tree doesn't know it's gypsy moth, so once it's been eaten once, it'll produce a second set of foliage. The caterpillar's still around. It eats that set of foliage. The tree wants to reproduce the energy that it's lost. It'll produce a third set of foliage, and if the caterpillar's still feeding, it'll eat it again. So the tree is using up 3 years' worth of carbon to produce that set of foliage, and that's what ends up causing the tree to start its decline. The thing around health risks, the hairs on the caterpillar cause a skin irritation, and there's lots of documentation that people with allergies and respiratory problems have had troubles with the gypsy moth. There are really no natural controls. Yes, some insects do feed on them. Same with mammals and some birds. Really, it's the middle one, E. mega mega, which is called Entomophaga mega mega. It's a fungus that was released by the U.S. Forestry Service. It's been released about 20 times over the last 100 years, and it's this fungus that actually will collapse the population. And the reason why the gypsy moth has increased is because following droughts, there is no fungus. Fungus dries off, declines, the gypsy moth population rises. So really what we're looking for is a wet summer. Fungus will return, the gypsy moth will collapse. The thing about the way we know the fungus is here is that the fungus prevents the caterpillar from digesting water. And so the caterpillar gets bigger and bigger, and eventually it pops and it oozes this black ooze all over the tree in your house and your pool. And having met about 100 landowners yesterday, no one recorded or mentioned that they had seen the rupture, so we know it hasn't happened yet. So that's what we're looking for. And as soon as that happens, we know the population is not going to continue on to the following spring. There is a natural control, and that's minus 30 degrees for about 16 days. And of course, we haven't had that for about 30 years. So the objective of what we're doing with spraying is we aerially spray to destroy enough caterpillars, approximately 95% of the caterpillars, to reduce the defoliation on the hardwoods, of which then protects the trees. There's also a personal element. We also protect the recreational area in your household areas in and around the house from the caterpillars. That's what usually gets landowners engaged in a spray program. It's not so much the loss of the foliage, but it's the loss of the recreation opportunities in the summertime. BT is the biological insecticide we use, BTK. It is the only insecticide or pesticide that is registered by the Organic Growers of Canada and the United States. It's a natural occurring soil bacteria that's blended with a sophisticated sugar. It has to be consumed by the caterpillar. We only spray about 1.5 liters of product per acre, so it's very small amounts. The design of the aircraft and the micronaires that produce the mist is they're very, very small droplets, and as the aircraft is going over the forest, the downdraft of the helicopter's blades and the up currents within the canopy spins the product in through the canopy, and it rolls it in, and it touches the droplets touch the leaf. Almost nothing hits the ground, and the caterpillar has to digest it. So having a beautiful distribution through the canopy is critical for effective controls. The biggest application we have sprayed here in 2009, we sprayed about 80 acres inside the town of Fonthill. But prior to that, we've had about 5 or 6 programs, and we've sprayed probably somewhere in the 35,000 acre range in total. The biggest spray program ever was 5 or 6 applications in downtown Vancouver in about 1995, and they used BT successfully. Okay, here's a picture of how they used to try and control the caterpillar way back when, is climbing up into the tree and removing egg masses. That's hardly practical. So aerial spraying is by far, and keeping your trees healthy, watering, fertilizing, but keeping the foliage on is the most beneficial way to protect your trees. Right now, we have spray programs that are set up in Brant County, Township of West Lincoln. We had an open house yesterday in Pelham. There were about 100 landowners who attended. From there, we'll generate spray blocks and we'll coordinate with landowners, but there will be a spray program in the rural part of Pelham. I think part of the discussion here is whether or not we need an urban program inside of Fonthill, certainly based on the number of landowners who attended yesterday. It appears, and based on egg masses that we've seen, certainly there would be a need in certain areas of the town that would require aerial spraying. Thank you.
Councilors.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So what would the cost be to spray, let's say, an acre of trees?
Well, what we've done in the past, there's a difference between urban and rural. Urban, you need a twin-engine aircraft, and there's all kinds of requirements with Ministry of Transportation, MOE. It is slightly different. Out in an urban area, there is the cost to put together one application is about 4 hours in terms of administration and MOE and all the signage. So what we've done in the past is we've had a base cost for the first 3 acres, and it's $510. Each acre after that decreases dramatically. So for example, a 50-acre woodlot, it costs you about $100 an acre for 2 applications, so that's $50 an acre per application. But the slightly higher than the cost to spray an agricultural field, for example, about $45 an acre.
Can you, you have sprayed in Pelham before. I'm sorry, Councilor, are you done?
No, go ahead.
Okay. And what is the land area that you have sprayed in past years in Pelham?
Well, only once, 2009, there was 4 parks and about 400 landowners. So it ranges from Hillcrest Park in the west, sweeping up through Pancake Lane, where there's a beautiful oak ridge, crosses over South Pelham into Kunda Park and down to along Steve Bauer Trail towards Merritt Street.
Okay. And you don't know how many acres that was?
About 80.
That was on the town?
That was within the town. And the way it worked last year, or in 2009, is there was and again, I didn't confirm my notes, but from what it looks like in my notes, there was a motion passed, a bylaw, and the landowners, the 400 landowners, were split the cost to have the aerial spraying done. It was about $160 a landowner, and it was a levy put onto the property taxes.
Okay, excellent. All right, Councilor Trophy.
If we were to get this sprayed again, would that be another option that landowners could get their property sprayed and put it on the tax levy at a reduced cost?
I don't think that's for me to answer, but
that'd be.
Yeah.
I'm in favor of it.
Yeah.
If we did it before, we can do it again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilor Stewart first.
Would it be to our benefit to have like the whole, specifically the whole rural area of Pelham done, and possibly the urban if need be?
When you say whole, no, because we only want to spray areas that require it.
Okay.
So the way we've worked out the costing for the town is there, and the Township of West Lincoln, is that we were asking for some money to look at exactly where is the infestation. From there, we would refine the acres, the spray blocks, and then we would know exactly what we're talking about in terms of the number of landowners and where they were. We have about 1,100 landowners who have been sprayed before, and we've reached out to almost all of them, and so we're just waiting to get feedback from them on egg masses and that sort of thing on their property. But what I can tell you is, from Six Nations all the way through to Short Hills, north of Highway 20, there is a huge infestation. There is a pocket at Bevan Heights in Niagara Lake. There's along the hardwood, particularly the oak forest along the Niagara Parkway, and then there's a couple of infestations along Lake Erie where they have beautiful oak forest down there.
Thank you.
Councilor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, how effective is spraying, and how is it evaluated?
Well, the spraying, we do 2 applications with BT. Is the spraying effective? Yes, it's very effective. I think based on the participation in the past where we've sprayed literally thousands of landowners, the two applications, the reason why we do two is because not all the caterpillars hatch at once, but we want to stop them, we want to destroy them before they start to feed. So we wait for the first 50% to start feeding and we spray. The second application is 7 to 10 days after the first, and that's to get the second half of the population. Weather forecasting is really, it's weather. We'd like the product to be on the leaf for at least 48 hours. Ideally 72, but we'll take 48 with two applications. And if we get that, the mortality rate would be in the high 90s. And if I could add, sorry, the reason why an aerial application in an urban environment is better is because the alternative is ground application with a chemical insecticide. It would also probably be about 3 times more expensive if you had everyone spraying individually from the ground.
I had some questions. So you've obviously been out scouting egg masses now, and that's how come you know of the infestation?
Yes, and feedback from clients.
So you've worked closely with our man Ryan.
Yes.
Yeah. And so tonight we would just receive this for information, and that's all you're here for, so just to tell us, give
Yes.
us the options.
Yep.
And then we'll have a report from council, what we've done in the past, and you will give a recommendation to Ryan as to what we should do, I hope, and then he can bring that to council in a report, and then we would do that.
We have it in the budget.
Oh, and we do, and we do have money in the budget, so it's just a case of how much and where, I guess.
Yes, we are prepared to assist you with that.
Yeah. You're all GP, I mean, you spray, you're all GPS now anyway, I imagine.
Oh, it's very sophisticated. Once the mapping is done and the mapping and the spray block is outlined, it's geo-referenced, yes, and as soon as the aircraft leaves that area, it automatically shuts off.
Yes. Yes, and one of the reasons I think council wanted you here tonight, so that the citizens would realize that it is an organic spray. It's not 2,4-D or DDT. It's a naturally occurring spray.
That is absolutely correct.
Yeah. So, okay, excellent. Thank you. And go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, I get looking at the material safety data sheet here, but a lot of things it has no rating at all. Like ingestion rating, none. Corrosive, none. Skin contact, none. Eye contact, none. Is it harmful to residents, or if they're...
No, nothing.
Sure.
It's a naturally occurring soil bacteria. You're exposed to it every day. And the reason why it affects the caterpillar, it's because of the pH in the intestine of the caterpillar. Once it's ingested, the bacteria turns into crystalline, and it cuts the intestine of the caterpillar and destroys it.
Party questions. Okay.
Any other questions?
I think,
For you, Mr. Mayor, so because Short Hills is a provincial park, you spray that as well, and it's paid for by Ministry of Environment?
This is, sorry, Short Hills. They haven't asked us to spray. So if there was, it would be the landowner's responsibility. In this case, yes, it would either be the Ministry of Natural Resources or Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, yes.
Because personally, anytime I hike through there, it's brutal. That's the bulk of them that you see. They almost rain on top of you. In fact, I've run out of there because they were raining on top of me. And it's just too gross. Can't handle that. So I'm just, are you to make a presentation to them? Because if we do our part outside of Short Hills and the people that border onto it, we cover that, and Short Hills itself doesn't get done, then it kind of defeats the purpose, no?
No. What we do is, as the caterpillar is ballooning and spreading out, it's not feeding. So we wait until the caterpillar has actually stopped ballooning and is now feeding. So once it's done that and we spray, it is only the caterpillar's ability to crawl to move from one property to the next. So yes, we can spray one person's property and protect it if the neighbor does not. And one thing we do with our program that is kind of unique is that a participant must get permission and consent from their adjacent landowners that they do not object to any spray. If they get consent, then we'll spray down right down the property boundary line, so the adjacent landowner will get about 45 feet, 50 feet of spray. So that'll provide them the protection of the caterpillar moving from a non-sprayed area to a sprayed area. And I will, knock on wood, say that out of, close to 15,000 landowners, we've never had an objection in almost 30 years. The other thing is, if you have lived through gypsy moth infestation, you will never object to BT being sprayed. So that's another reason why we really don't act until the infestation is here, because we can never convince anyone who hasn't had an infestation. And we can show you all the models that it's going to be really bad, but if it hasn't been bad yet, you will not participate. So we always have to be sort of a year behind, because there's the only way we can get you motivated to participate.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, just for clarification, so when would we have to start the spray? Like, is it late April, early May?
No, spraying takes place about the third week of May, first week of June.
Okay, so we've got time to run it through our process to
Oh, yes,
get
absolutely.
approvals.
We have a good solid month to get things organized. We need the spray blocks put together for May 1st. Third week of April, actually.
Great, thanks.
And part of the reason why this is so important is that if 2 years in a row of heavy defoliation, that's more or less it for the tree.
No, that's a bit drastic.
Okay.
With the bigger the tree, the more vulnerable it is to stresses, the more defoliation takes place. Yes, it does put it on a trajectory that's hard to reverse. It's almost always a combination of, don't forget, the gypsy moth arises because of drought, and so the tree is already being put pressure on because of the climate. So yes, this is our fourth or fifth. As you drive sort of rural Niagara, you can see oaks that are dead in hedgerows. That's almost exclusively gypsy moth from the 1990s, and it's taken 20 years for the trees to eventually collapse, but that's what started it.
Wow. Okay, thank you, sir. Any other questions? Okay, so thank you for your presentation. Have a motion from Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that the delegation by Paul Robertson from Trees Unlimited regarding the gypsy moth be received for information. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Now you have Mr. Heska.
Oh, and now the last presentation for, should we have to do a motion or not?
I have one for after his presentation.
Okay,
Are you accepting questions from the floor on that?
oh, I'm sorry, well, are we? Yeah,
They could send their questions
Oh.
through to me. That's
okay, could you, we shouldn't, if we follow protocol, could you perhaps talk to him in the hall?
No, it's for the town. I mean,
Oh.
I've been,
We'll,
we need council's
oh, wait, before, council approval, is everyone happy if this man approaches? Yeah. Okay, go ahead, sir.
yeah, my name's Frank Feely, and I've lived on the corner of Blackwood Crescent and Pancake Lane.
Wait, if we're gonna do this officially, do you want to come up and talk into the mic, Mr. Freely? Great. Okay, thank you.
All right, and I've lived there since 1975. I've had an ongoing discussion with previous council on this. Hillcrest Park is 1 inch from my property. 2 years ago, I had to cut down a 75-foot oak tree because of the major infestation of gypsy moths. I have an iPad here. I can show you numerous pictures of egg masses, even today, on my trees. In 1990, I have documentation from the town of Pelham indicating that the gypsy moth is a major infestation, and it's a severe and has reached severe proportions, and spraying must take place. That was in May of 1990. In June, they turned around and said that for this reason, it will be necessary to continue spraying for several years. Never did anything. 2008, same thing. I have a binder this thick of emails from the previous council, deception, lies, obfuscations,
Well, anyway, continue.
and, you know, nothing really happened.
Yes.
I had a designation, you people have it on file,
Yeah.
where I represented 37 landowners bordering the park.
Yeah.
And last year, the same thing. I want to recommend my appreciation to you for recognizing the devastation, and Ryan, who is very sympathetic to the approach, and hopefully we can get things done. Our concern is that because there has been a lack of a continued program, our houses that border, and I represent 37 landowners, that border the park have had severe defoliage with I've got two 775-foot oak trees in my front, and I can show you on my iPad. They're being devastated by this. And the town has not accepted their fiduciary responsibilities, and it's your property, too damn bad. Well, so we're supposed to pay the cost. Now, in 2008, it was sprayed. There was a meeting, and the town came back and said, well, we'll spray a border on the property. And you heard Paul said that there is overspray. We'll spray about 20 feet on your property all around, and we'll charge you $157 to spray that. Well, when I got the figures from Zimmer, and I worked with Zimmer, the total price, or the total acreage, was 5.63 acres. The total cost was about $5,400. The residents were to pay 87% of it, including the park, and the park was paying about 12%, and 85% of it was theirs. So I don't think that the town is paying their fair share. We only want fair share. And not only that, I think they've been delinquent in accepting their responsibilities to do it. And as a result, we're getting major infestation. I don't want to have to take down my two 75-foot oak trees, and I can show you pictures of it, that they are in a severe state because of this. So my question to you is, yes, you may say you're going to spray the park. My point is, are you going to spray our property at your expense, not our expense? And do you know whether or not you're going to do that?
Wait. So run this by me again. So you want the town to spray private property at our cost?
I want the town to assume the responsibility that the infestation came right from the park, and the town has not realized their obligations to spray that correctly, as they wouldn't emigrate onto ours and other ones. As a matter of fact, I think Zimmer, when I talked to Paul Zimmer, says, why not have the town do a bylaw, and it would be an awful lot cheaper to have that done on a mass basis in certain sections of the town and have it done, and it may cost about $10, $12 per taxpayer. I just don't think that we should have to pay to have ours sprayed, because the infestation, and it has been a major infestation by the town, because it hasn't been done on a continuous basis. And it's not only me.
Yeah.
There's 37 people behind me on that too.
Okay, so Mr. Freely, obviously you're going to have to work in conjunction with Ryan, who you have said you have a lot of faith
I
in.
do, but it's,
Okay.
you have to,
Yes,
you have to
so-
do the budget.
We can't make you a promise right now. We have obviously Ryan will be talking to you
Yes.
and to Paul. Fill out a report, comes back to council, and then we'll have to discuss it then.
Well, time is of the essence.
Yeah, well, we do have.
And
we
I
have
appreciate that,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor.
And we appreciate your presentation,
Thank
and I'm sure we'll work something out here.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay. So we don't have a motion because that was an unscheduled speaker. So now we will go back to our scheduled program, which will be Bill Heska. Bill, please.
Good evening, Mayor Junkin, council, senior staff, and community citizens. I'm here to present a letter in regards to the cannabis issue on behalf of the Pelham Community Preservation Committee. I'm Bill Heska. I ask council make cannabis control its top priority. The community at large has demonstrated a strong desire for council to make this issue a priority. The councillors had noted that while they were canvassing door to door in preparation for the municipal election, the overwhelming majority of residents did not want cannabis growers in Pelham. The view was supported by approximately 250 residents that came to public meeting on February 25th, 2019 to show their displeasure with respect to the exemption of Leviathan from the interim control bylaw and the 815 residents who signed a petition to control cannabis production and its impacts in the town of Pelham. The Planning Act affords the use of two tools that I wish to address, namely site plan control and zoning bylaw. With respect to the site plan control, the town of Pelham official plan states that under B21312 greenhouses that any proposal to develop a greenhouse or hoop house will be subject to site plan control to ensure lighting, traffic, landscaping, and other planning and design matters can be addressed prior to the issuance of a building permit. Presently, the town is using the 1987 Site Plan Control Bylaw, number 1118, 1987. Pelham staff have on a number of occasions informed council that the Site Plan Control Bylaw exempts agricultural uses, including all greenhouse operations. As an example, the fire chief in January 2018 report on cannabis marijuana odor complaints on the town website stated, the town of Pelham Site Plan Control Bylaw 1118 1987 exempts agricultural uses, including greenhouses, from the site plan control. Therefore, the town does not impose site plan control on greenhouses. While it is true that the site plan control bylaw currently exempts greenhouses, council clearly directed through the 2014 approval of the official plan that this bylaw be amended to include greenhouses. Yet staff has not yet brought forward the necessary amendment. At a recent council meeting, Barb Weens, Director of Planning and Development, was asked about the site plan control of cannabis greenhouse operations. She replied that the planning department has not been working on the site plan control bylaw and that it could be done in-house. If an enabling bylaw had been put in place after the official plan had been amended to require site plan control for greenhouse development, the existing cannabis operation facilities would have required site plan control and would likely not be where they are now. With respect to the zoning bylaw, more than 2 years after the official plan was approved on July 25th, 2016, the draft comprehensive zoning bylaw report stated, work on this project commenced in 2014 and then in 2015 with somewhat in a hiatus, given changes in planning and staff and workload volume. Work began again in earnest in late 2015 and through the winter and spring of 2016. it is recommended the staff be directed to commence the public agency and council consultation process on the draft comprehensive zoning bylaw. At the time, Mayor Dave Augustine stated, in Ontario, it is a community zoning bylaw that contains detailed information on what kind of land use and what kinds of physical structures are allowed on each property in the town. The zoning bylaw puts into effect the town's official plan. He went on to say, the details include the height and massing of buildings, the distance buildings must be set back from the street and other yards, and any landscaping requirements. Since zoning bylaws are legally enforceable under the Ontario Planning Act, proposed development that do not fit the bylaw requirements are not allowed to proceed unless they receive variance. When Ms. Weens was asked about the zoning bylaw with respect to the official plan for cannabis greenhouse operations, she replied the staff has been working on the zoning bylaw since the official plan was passed 5 years ago on March 11, 2014. Many of other municipalities have amended their bylaws to control the development of marijuana cannabis production facilities by placing restrictions on building setback distances and distances of lot lines from adjacent property lines. The following municipalities amended zoning bylaws with respect to medical marijuana production facilities: Leamington on May 28, 2018, Norfolk on March 27, 2018, Burlington on June 9, 2014, and Toronto on June 9, 2014. On April 7, 2018, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities published a document, Cannabis Legalization Premier, How Municipalities Can Get Ready. Under two guidelines is the following. Recognizing the short time municipalities have to prepare for cannabis legalization and the amount of time it takes to develop bylaws, there are a few things your municipality can do to prepare for cannabis legalization now. Some initial steps that can begin immediately include passing a motion in council directing municipal staff to prepare options for land use bylaw amendments in anticipation of direction from other orders of government. Conducting research on local impacts of cannabis legalization and implications for municipal governments. Engaging with your province or territory through provincial, territorial, municipal associations or directly in a PT consultation process. Creating a timeline and work plan. Scoping out the anticipated municipalities' municipal roles and responsibilities into phases. Bylaws required for day one of legalization, bylaws required based on further provincial territorial regulatory direction, and bylaws to be addressed further along in the process. The Pelham Community Preservation Coalition urges the town of Pelham to immediately process an amendment to the site plan bylaw so that a development of a greenhouse or hoop house will be subject to site plan control to ensure lighting, traffic, landscaping, and other planning and design matters can be addressed prior to the issuance of a building permit. Prioritize the creation of a bylaw to control cannabis production in the town of Pelham and its impacts on the residents. This may involve a combination of Planning Act, zoning bylaws, and Municipal Act nuisance bylaws, and create a timeline and work plan to ensure that the bylaws are in place by October 15, 2019, when the interim control bylaw expires. That's my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Haskell. Councilor, have any questions from Mr. Haskell? Okay, any, Mr. Haskell, if I may call you Bill, what you have said there, I can assure you that this council has been taking big steps. Our Director of Planning has been in touch with many people, experts, so that when we later on tonight put out the terms of reference for the cannabis committee, or whatever you want to say. We're going to be putting out applications for that committee, and once that committee is up and rolling, we will have many people lined up to speak to that committee so that we can have their expert opinions, and like you say, talk to other municipalities to that committee, and from there we will be able to build enforceable bylaws that will be in place by October 15th. I mean, this council hasn't, I realize that the average Joe out in the public can't see what's going on here, but I can assure you that stuff has been happening behind the scenes, and as soon as this committee is formed, you guys will be off and running.
Well, basically, we understand that the new council has been acting, and there's, since October, some work has been done. The trouble is that things should have happened back in 2014, and there's 4 years, 5 years, and
Thank you for that 2020 hindsight.
Right, so what we're saying, but all the concern is now, we're only 7 months away from October 15th.
The council is very aware of the time.
2 months of that is going to be summer months where efficiency of government action is limited. So it's basically, there's a crunch period that we're into right now. We're just trying to raise the priority and to get action.
Well, we've already had several people come before council, and I will assure you, as I did them, that everyone here is aware of the concerns of the committee or of the community. And myself, I personally believe that science is out there. It's up to this town to pass the correct bylaws to make these people spend their money to clean their operations up. It's being done in other places. Just all I can say is let's get this committee up and running, and you will see things happen. That's all I can say.
Okay.
Director of Planning, Ms. Weens, do you have a comment to make on this?
Mr. Mayor, through you, certainly that's why we have an interim control bylaw in place, is to give us time to develop the policies, the regulations, the requirements, the changes to the zoning bylaw, nuisance bylaws, and those kind of things to better manage and better control cannabis. So we will be bringing those things forward, and that's what we've been working on in the last number of months.
Amen. Thank you very much. Bill, thank you for the presentation.
Yep.
And we will heed it. Okay, so we have here a motion put forward by Councillor Hildebrand, seconded by Councillor Wink, that the information submitted by the delegation, agenda item 5.2.4, by Bill Heska, and added as an amendment, and that the presentation be forwarded to staff, Director Weens, for consideration in the development of the cannabis-related report presently underway. Any comments on this? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Okay. And all those opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Okay, wow, we certainly had our education tonight, Council, as we move down the list. Oh, we have one more tonight. Councillor Hewson, the regional representative. Thank you, Councillor. The floor is yours.
Good evening. So on February 28th, the Regional Council approved the levy operating budget. I didn't include everything because I'd be here for a very long time, but I included some highlights that I thought I would bring to your attention. The first one was the regional transit investment, which was about $7.9 million investment, or 1.4% of the levy. It represented a significant enhancements to the transit system, which would be connecting our community. It's important for youth employment and is a significant aspect of our economic development. So as such, regional transit services will be progressively increasing year by year. There'll be merging routes run by St. Catharines Transit plus Welland Transit routes between Niagara College, and its Niagara-on-Lake campus, as well as Brock University. And a new route is being considered that will direct service between the university and Niagara-on-Lake College campus. And they're targeting a full integration by 2021. But this initiative will require subsequent funding for a couple years to come because it is a long-term commitment and a very large scope of a project. And Mayor Junkin, you're on the Linking Niagara committee, so you would know the extent of how robust this project is.
Yeah.
Secondly, we approved the NRP operating budget, which was $2.1 million. The NRP had transferred business licensing over to the region, so uploading of that service, which covers taxis, transportation network companies, auto records, salvage yards, and secondhand goods stores and adult entertainment licenses. So this aligns Niagara with some of the other practices where no one else has their police enforcing these type of services. So in addition to that, they expanded their officers by adding two officers for the sexual assault unit. In 2017, there was actually a 14% increase in the number of sexual assault reports they were handling. So there is an increase in those types of offenses. And there's 2 new officers added to establish a human trafficking unit. Niagara has become, unfortunately, a hub for human trafficking, largely due to our proximity to the border, as well as the number of hotels and motels that we have in our tourism sector. Surprisingly, Port Colborne seems to be a hot spot for this. So that's certainly a new development for them. And then they also created some new civilian positions, which included a clinical psychologist, and this has been a move that has also been undertaken by EMS because they're seeing a lot of workplace-related mental health issues as a result of the nature of their work. So the police have also gone along that line. Council remuneration was reviewed, and there was $198,000 to address the pay reduction. That was passed. And in addition to that, the Niagara Investment in Culture Program, which was funding of $300,000, was continued. I think this is significant because there has been action at the provincial level to reduce spending on the arts, and this money is directly accessed and spent in the Niagara region. So this money is directly invested back into our arts and cultural sector within Niagara. And last year, this programming funded the Pelham Street Performer program that happened in Fonthill, Ridgeville, and Fenwick. And finally, $4 million was included in the budget for the Burgoyne Bridge barriers. However, there seems to be some, let's say, different opinions on council as to where that money should best be spent, whether it should be spent in terms of, I guess, more reactionary, putting up barriers on the bridge, or if that money is invested back into mental health programming. So that should be coming up for further discussion. And that's it, short and sweet. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you. Before I open up the council, could you just give us a very small overlay of what you and the new board has been accomplishing at the NCPA? Just,
the NPCA?
Yes.
So additionally, since we passed the budget, the interim board, which had originally been established for 3 months, has now been extended for an additional 3 months. Since that time, there has obviously been a change in leadership. We've put in a new interim CAO. There's been a number of committees formed. There's one that's focusing on freedom of information requests. There's one that's focused on our governance. As an example, our board and our administrative bylaw actually allowed for per diem payments to be on a per meeting basis. So if we were to go to 3 meetings within 3 hours, we would get 3 per diem payments. And the committee saw this as, and it was noted in the Auditor General report as not in the best interest of the organization and allowed board members to kind of take advantage of the financial remuneration. So we've been examining the administrative bylaws and trying to address some of the issues with the board governance that was highlighted in the Auditor General's report. So, but the focus of the next 3 months will have to be on coming up with a skills matrix so that board appointments can actually be can follow what is in the best interest of the organization as per the needs of the organization. So we'll be making, probably talking about that at our meeting on Wednesday is our next meeting, and making a recommendation on how the region can then make appointments which will subsequently come from the municipalities.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hahn, you have a question?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Hi.
Hi.
Regarding council remuneration, so net then, did you take the increase then or the decrease?
So council voted in favor of maintaining the current pay level. So if we had not voted in favor of it, we would have ended up with a pay decrease. I actually voted against that. There was 11 council members who voted against it.
Thanks. I'm done.
Okay, any other questions for the councillor? Yeah?
And we were able to bring the tax increase was almost 6%. I got a couple emails from some of you not happy about that. We did bring it down to 3.8%, so we're happy about that. Okay?
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, councillor. And we have a motion put forward by councillor Stewart, seconded by councillor Wink. Be it resolved that the March 13th, 2019, March 18th actually, report submitted by Regional Councillor Houston be received for information. All those in favor? All those opposed? None. Motion carries. Okay. So we have, oh, wait, wrong page. Oh. Right there. Adoption of minutes. So it's 6. And do I don't have, do I read these?
I'll read this.
Just have to do this? Oh, yeah. So without reading in the 616263, be it resolved that so a motion put forward by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that the following minutes be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. 1 C-04 2019, Council Minutes March 4th, 2019. 2 SC-09 2019, Special Council Minutes March 9th, 2019. And number 3 SC-10 2019, Special Council Minutes March 11th, 2019. Any discussion on these minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Any against? Don't see. Motion carries. Very good. So now business arising from council minutes. Wait. I'm sorry? There is none. Okay, so then we go down to request to lift consent agenda items for separate consideration. And councillors, after looking at the consent agenda items, do we have items to be pulled? Councillor Hildebrand.
For you, Mr. Mayor, 9.3.3.
Yes? That's it?
That's it.
Anybody else want to pull? Okay. So, do I read these all? Yeah. Okay, so a motion put forward by Councillor Trophy, seconded by Councillor Wink. Present 9.1, presentation of recommendation arising from PCOW or PNP for council approval. Be it resolved that council approve the recommendations arising from the following: Cow-01, 2019, Committee of the Whole, February 4th and 19th, 2019. Number 2, Cow-02, 2019, Committee of the Whole, March 4th, 2019. Number 3, P-Cow-03, 2019, Public Meeting under Planning Act, March 11th, 2019. Special Cow-03, 2019, Special Committee of the Whole, March 11th, 2019. Number 5, Memo to Council on Budget Changes, dated March 18th, 2019, to support the line changes to the 2019 operating budget. 9.2, Minutes Approval Committee. Be it resolved that the following minutes be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. Number 1, P-Cow-02, 2019, Public Meeting under Planning Act minutes of February 25th, 2019. Number 2, Cow-02, 2019, Committee of the Whole, March 4th, 2019. Number 3, Special Cow-03, 2019, Committee of the Whole minutes, March 11th, 2019. And 4, P-Cow-03, 2019, Public Meeting minutes, March 11th, 2019. 9.3, Staff reports of a routine nature for information or action. 9.3.1, update on the decommissioning of the arena property at 1120 Hay Street. Be it resolved that council receive the report entitled Update on the Decommissioning of the Arena Property at 1120 Hay Street for information purposes. 9.3.2, 2018 Statement of Council and Board Remuneration. Be it resolved that council receive the 2018 Statement of Council and Board Remuneration as amended for information. 9.33, Asante, oh, no, he pulled that, so I don't say, right? I have to, clerk?
Correct, you don't say that.
You don't say this one. Yes, okay, so we missed 9.33 because Councilor Hildebrand pulled that for discussion. 9.4, action correspondence of a routine nature. 9.4.1, Barbara Rydiak, specialized transit. Be it resolved that council receive correspondence from Barbara Bribiak dated March 11th, 2019 regarding running specialized transit on Sundays and holidays for information, and that council directs staff to determine the feasibility and cost of running specialized transit on Sundays and holidays and to report back to council. 9.5, information correspondence items. 9.5.1, Pelham Community Preservation Coalition petition, re cannabis. Be it resolved that council receive the correspondence and appended Pelham Community Preservation Coalition petition dated February 25th, 2019. 9.5.2, City of Quinte West, re-resolution bottled water. Be it resolved that council receive correspondence from the City of Quinte West dated March 8th, 2019 regarding bottled water for information. 9.6, Niagara Region correspondence. Be it resolved that council receive the following correspondence from the Niagara Region for information. Report PDS 10-2019, update on natural environment work program. New region official plan. 2, report PDS 2-2019, environmental planning function overview. 3, development application monitoring report 2018 year end. And extension, number 4, extension of Niagara Region representative appointments to the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority Board. Any comments on these motions, on these consent agendas? And then,
call for any comments, yeah.
Okay, so any comments on these agenda, yes?
Yeah, on 11 point,
Well, that's not a consent agenda. The consent agendas are all the 9 point whatever. So 11 is presentation, that's something else. If you're down to the 11.
So on your agenda, members, you're looking at items 9.1 through 9.8.
That's what we're discussing right now.
So it stops at Summerfest.
Oh, Councilor Hildebrand.
Did you read this page?
Wait. No, I didn't read the page.
You have one more page.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's the page. And so I'm going to actually, if I can, belatedly, I want to talk about 9.71.
After you've read it in,
Yes,
then
okay.
it's time for discussion.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that. 9.7, Regional Municipality of Niagara Action Items. 9.7.1, Provincial Review of Regional Government. Be it resolved that Council receive Regional Report COTW 1-2019, Minute Item 6.2, Provincial Review of Regional Government, and that Council endorse and support the letter from the local area municipal mayors requesting that the region undertake a procurement of and facilitation of finances to hire a government relations communications firm to advise the 13 Niagara municipalities on government relations, public polling, and communications with regard to the provincial government review of regional government. 9.8, committee minutes for information. 9.8.1, Summerfest committee minutes, February 20th, 2019. Be it resolved that Council receive the Summerfest committee minutes dated February 20th, 2019 for information. So on those, other than 9.3.3 and 9.71, does councilors have any comments? Oh, Councilor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would request that the Director of Public Works bring us up to date with the arena decommissioning.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the existing arena, all the servicing to the existing arena, with save and except the hydro, has been decommissioned. The refrigeration plant has been decommissioned, the Simcoe plant within the arena itself, and the gas and the telecommunication services have all been decommissioned from the existing arena property. So the only thing that's being supplied right now is power to the building itself. There's a 600 volt supply service that gets stepped down through a transformer within the arena, and that power is being used to power lights outside the building, within the parking lot, and to operate our burglar and fire alarm systems within that building.
Councilor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, do you have any plans of what to do about the hydro?
Mr. Mayor, currently the cost to supply hydro to that facility is roughly $1,200 per month. So we are working with Ontario Hydro. They're the supplier for that facility, for the hydro, as well as we're working with the Paddle Tennis Club to try to come up with some options to feed the lighting for the parking lot, for the parks and the soccer fields and the parking lot itself through a separate source, and so that we could decommission the hydro from that building and essentially turn off the alarm systems and board up that building so that won't be receiving any hydro. I can give you an update to where we stand on that. We've been in discussions with the Paddle Tennis Club, possibly running a service off their meter to power those lights. To give you kind of an idea, annual cost to operate one luminaire on a road is roughly $250 for the year itself. So it runs, $15 to $20 per month to operate that light standard. So that's what we're looking at right now. So those discussions, we weren't able to get those discussions finalized prior to bringing this report to council, but I wanted to bring a report to let you know that the services have been decommissioned with Save and Accept the Hydro, and staff is looking at options of reducing our hydro costs through feeding those lights through an alternate source, and we'll report back to council very shortly when we have those answers in place.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay. Okay, any other discussions on these consent agenda items? Okay, not, oh, so should I call it now, or do we discuss the 9.3?
Did you, no, did you want to say something? I thought you were going to
Yeah,
say something.
oh, okay. So, so I will now speak to 9.7.1, provincial review of regional government. So the 12 mayors, that says 13, I thought it was 12, the training, Niagara municipalities, so it's a 13, I'm sorry?
It includes the region.
Oh, so it's 12 areas, okay, so 12 municipalities, the 12 mayors have approached the regional government to hire a communications relations company. Instead of having 12 individual mayors approach the province when they come down to talk about amalgamation or review of Niagara governance, instead of having 12 mayors speaking to them, it was our decision to go to the region and hire a relations communications government or company that would represent us. And in order to know what he wants to represent by us, we also asked the Niagara region to hire a polling firm so that that firm will do our region-wide poll of the residents of Niagara as to what they would envision the future government of the region to look like. So the 12 CAOs of each municipality, the 12 of them, will get together and form questions among themselves that will be put on the polling questionnaire. And then when that polling is done, hopefully in conjunction with the hiring of the government relations communications company, then that company will take the results of that poll and create a dialogue with the representatives of the Ontario government. So that is what that's about. Any questions on that and how it's going to unfold? Yes, Councillor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. From those representatives, from the 13 representatives, do you feel that you can have an impact on Toronto, who seems to have their mind made up on a lot of issues?
So the feeling, and I don't know if this is just wishful thinking on this side of the lake, the feeling is that Mr. Ford has started this whole process to deal more with the regions on the other side of the lake. And that when Niagara was thrown in just as because we were a region that hasn't been looked at for a while. So as to what will appease the powers in Toronto as to how this new governance looks in Niagara, yeah, anybody's guess right now. But we thought that by having one voice with this poll behind them, that we would have a better chance of letting our voice be heard as opposed to a shotgun approach. Thank you. Any other questions? So now we're back to count 9.3.3?
No,
No?
you're going to call the question on this?
Okay.
Then we'll do 9.3.3.
Okay, so on what we've just discussed and all the other consent items, where are we?
Just call the question.
Oh, be it resolved that council approve the recommendations arising from what I just read and we discussed. All those in favor? And all those opposed? Excellent. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. Right here. Now,
Okay, so now you're
Yeah.
going to read moved by
Oh.
Trophy and Wink, and then you will read this.
oh, okay. Yep, okay. A motion moved by Councilor Trophy, seconded by Councilor Wink. And then be it resolved that council will receive the report entitled Asante Sign Variance and the council approved the requested variance to the sign bylaw as outlined in the report to permit a setback distance of 1.5 meters, whereas the bylaw requires a 3 meter setback. Discussion on this item, Councillor Hildebrand.
I'd like to make a motion that the report would be referred back to staff and that council requests staff to provide additional information and submit this information to the general committee for consideration and debate.
Okay. And does he need a seconder?
He needs a seconder. Mr. Mayor, I believe he has one.
Oh,
Mr. Wood.
okay.
Councillor Wick.
So this motion was put together by Councillor Hildebrand and indeed seconded by Councillor Wink. So debate on this motion. Okay, so just vote. So you put the motion forward, Councillor. Would you like to speak more on it?
Yes, I'll be glad to do that. Everyone probably knows my background. Being an engineer, I always relied on procedures because once you had a trusted and approved procedure, I was almost guaranteed that I could go to sleep at night because I know that staff had done what they were supposed to do. This variance, we do have a signed procedure. I think it's very specific. It gives all the requirements to address variances, and I believe that this procedure needs to be followed. And that's the request I have. So that's why I'm requesting more details for the signed variance.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Wink, would you like to address?
Yeah, if you look at the application, there's a letter given to us from Signature Signs and Image, and it says, "Dear Pelham Council," and goes on to say, bear with me for a second, we are unable to move the sign back further as it will interfere with their stone patio. But if you look at the site plan or whatever, if that sign were moved closer to away from the intersection, you can push it back further and not interfere with that stone patio. So I think there's, plus I think if you pull it back further, the sight lines at that intersection would drastically improve. So I agree with Councillor Hildebrand.
Okay, thank you, councillors. So we vote on this motion then?
You vote on this one.
Okay, we vote on this one.
Motion to refer.
Okay, so Councillor, again, the motion put forward by Councillor Hildebrand and seconded by Councillor Wink. Item 9.3.3, that the report be referred back to staff and that council request staff to provide additional information and submit this information to general committee for consideration and debate. All those in favor of this motion? Okay, all those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, therefore the consent agendas are done. Right down to here, okay. So next one is 11.1, reports from members of council. Please.
We don't have any listed.
No, we don't have any. Okay. So 11.2, staff report requiring action.
We're at this one right now.
Okay. So 11.2.1, recommendation request for zoning bylaw amendment application, River Estates Phase 2, file number AM-03-19. So a motion from Councillor Hildebrand, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that council receives this Department of Community Planning and Development report for information as it pertains to file number AM-03-19 relating to River Estates Phase 2 draft plan of subdivision, and that council approve the bylaw attached hereto as Appendix A, amending the zoning of the subject property from the agricultural zone to the site-specific residential multiple 1 RM1-287 zone. Any discussion on this motion? Okay, all those in favor of this motion? Okay, all those opposed, motion carries. And again, I lose a thank you. Ah, there it is. Excellent. Motion put forward by Councillor Trophy and seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that council receive the report.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we do have to have, Councillor Wink wants to vacate.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. This is the item that Councillor Wink declared a conflict of interest, so he will leave the room while we discuss this. Okay, so again, be it resolved that council receive the report survey on 1120 Hay Street property, and that council endorse the sale of said property as authorized through bylaw number 4010/2018, which bylaw declared the land surplus and authorized disposition. Debate on this motion. Not seeing any. I will call the vote. All those in favor of the motion? And all those against the motion? Okay, motion does not carry. Not carried, lost.
To retrieve the councillor?
Can someone please tell Mr. Wink that he could come back in, please? Give him a shout. Thanks, Jason. Okay, so we did 11.2. So now we're down to, so then we did that. Now we're down to Pelham Transit update. We will wait until Mr. Wink gets back. He may be chasing him down the road. Okay. We wanted to hear from councillors, from the public. Would I do that now or after?
I would say present the motion first, so it's on the floor.
Okay. So we have a motion put forward by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that council receive the Pelham Transit Update concept paper, and that the second bus be implemented as per the Community Transportation Grant Program in September 2019 as outlined in the 2019 operating budget. Now, there is someone in the audience who would like to speak to this motion. Would council permit this person to approach the podium? Okay, so Ms. Cook, if you want to say a few words.
Okay, I didn't know I was quick.
Well, I thought that I thought you had mentioned.
Okay, I can't speak for the Pelham Seniors Advisory Committee, at least the new committee, because we've only had one meeting and we haven't really had an opportunity to look at our goals and our strategic plan. However, I can certainly speak to the many discussions that we've had in the past, as I'm sure Councillor Hildebrand can attest. There's been lots of discussion around the table about enhanced transportation. There are two things in this community that are ultimately very important to seniors. One is housing and one is transportation. About 3 weeks ago, we had a Niagara Regional Aging meeting in the Meridian Center, and Dr. Rain from McMaster University spoke to us about seniors being suffering from loneliness, and that was, in his opinion, one of the #1 causes of illness and depression in seniors. And one of the goals that I hope our committee will have this year is that social isolationism has got to stop. We have got to find out where these people live. We've got to do whatever we can to be more inclusive and to bring these people together in a social kind of environment. And one of the things that's obviously important to that is having adequate transportation. And I know that the seniors that use it are very happy about that, about having that transportation, because as we know, our population is aging. 80 years old, people are starting to give up their licenses, so the demand for transportation, I think, is only going to increase over the next few years. And we know that by 2030, which is only 11 years away, 60% of the population of this community is going to be seniors. So I think the sooner we get processes in place and we start preparing for that, I think the more age-friendly this community will be. So if we can do something to enhance the transportation, then I think it's ultimately important that we do it. And I know that grants always cost money. I mean, they don't always cover everything, and I can appreciate the financial aspect to it. But at the same time, I think we're in a position to enhance the lives of a lot of people if we can keep that transportation moving and enhance it and bring some of the seniors and those that are isolated together. So that's about all I can tell you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Okay, so Madam Clerk, I request a recorded vote on this, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
So is there any further discussion by council?
Any further discussion on this?
No.
Okay, so.
Councillor Stewart.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, there was talk about the grant for a second bus, and you were going to bring us a report back on that as to whether it could be extended till next year. Do you have that information yet?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the report is the Pelham Transit report that you have today.
Mm-hmm.
That is the report on whether we could extend to 2020. So in the report, it explains that we have reviewed our agreement and we can extend it till 2020. Although when we attached to the report is the financials. It is on there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right, I just want to make sure. And when we analyzed whether, what is our benefit in extending the grant, in fact, it would cost, in 2019, for one bus, it would cost the $123,000. And by implementing the second bus in September, which is only a 4-month period, we would be able to access the funding from the grant in 2019, which would offset both buses. So the actual difference in the budget would be $179 approximately. All revenues are very conservative. And this does not take into account the additional provincial gas tax that we would be receiving. We don't take that into account because You don't know, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Hahn?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in addition to the question that was just asked, I thought we talked about the region was looking into, and so it wasn't Uber, but it was something like an Uber type of service, and you were going to get back to us on that, or maybe that meeting hasn't happened? I'm not sure.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Now, since the regional budget has been approved, well then, regional staff can go ahead and hire the consultant that will be doing the analysis, and we will be invited to that meeting as soon as that is. And we're hoping that'll be, well, now it'll probably be towards the end of the year. And that would only be basically for specialized and on-demand. So at that time, throughout the agreement, if we come up with different ways of operating, we can meet with the MTO and look at changes to the agreement at that time.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure that I'm exactly correct, but I think the region receives about $19 million in grant money for transportation. And through you, I'm not sure that we've received any in the past. Is that a correct assumption?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I can't tell you how much the region receives, but what it is the, I believe you're speaking on the provincial gas tax.
Correct.
So the second year we were, in 2017, we received $148,000 in gas tax. And that is mainly based on the municipality's contribution to operating transit. In 2018, I hope I'm not messing up my years. Years fly by. In 2018, our contribution was much lower. No, 2016 we received. Sorry, I'm off. Yeah. Sorry, I'm off. 2016 we received the $148,000 on top of our grant. Okay, 2017, because we applied the full $148,000 towards our operating expenses, we were, as I'd like to say, penalized, which we knew we would be. If you take that provincial gas tax and put it towards your operating expenses for the year, your provincial gas tax is based on what the municipality has paid for in operating expenses. So we were basically penalized, and we, this year, or 2018, we are receiving $58,000 instead of $148,000. So that's a big difference. In so our operating expenses, I believe, were $131,000. So our provincial gas tax in 2019 should be much higher, because we actually have put operating expenses against it. As you can see in my report, the town of Lincoln, it's page 2. The town of Lincoln, for one bus, their costs are $288,000. Fort Erie, they have 3 buses. It's $799,000. In Port Colborne, they have 2 buses, $307,000. And on Niagara-on-the-Lake, a portion of the year, most of the year, they run 2 buses. Although during the summer months, their peak times, they run an additional 3, which their costs are $579,000. So in looking at that, our cost will be $123,000 for 2 buses. And that's basically because of our funding that we will be receiving again. And for the first bus, we have figured on $51,000 in gas tax. Very conservative, because the more the buses, the ridership, as they go up, your gas tax goes up, and we will be basically funding 123,000. I hope that wasn't too confusing.
Are you done, Councillor?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I thought the region received money other than gas tax money for transportation. Am I not right there?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there was a fund that they did receive millions of dollars.
Right.
And that is to purchase new buses.
Oh.
Yes, and we did not qualify for that because the province took the data from 2015 and we were not in transit in 2015. Believe me, I met with the province and I was not happy. I was all excited because everyone else received money for, but it was actually for capital for buses, and we don't own our buses. We just pay we contract it out.
Thank you. Councillor Hahn?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I was just going to ask in regards to your comparison, are you doing an apples to apples, so same size bus, same capacity, seating and such? So for instance, Lincoln, Fort Erie, Port Colborne, they're the same type of buses that we have?
Okay, through you, Mr. Mayor, and not always, they may not be the same type of bus.
Seats.
But seats, whatever. Basically, what we're comparing are our needs. That's all that I'm comparing. I'm not comparing seats because, you know, we could have a city bus, a huge bus on, but only have 1 or 5, 10 people on it. So we are running more efficiently with our small bus.
You've got, for instance, Town of Lincoln at $288,000.
Oh, okay.
Is that big bus, little bus? Because we've got little buses, right? So it has to be the same.
Mr. Mayor, Town of Lincoln is almost the exact same bus. They compared, when they got into the transit business, they basically took our model and duplicated it. Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, what we have new this year, though, for the 2019 budget is the region is contributing to paying the link. So there's $62,500. So that is the link from Pelham to either, you know, Seaway Mall or Niagara College, whereas we were paying that before. So that's helping to offset the cost. There isn't a municipality in the Niagara region that's running as efficient as the one in Pelham. To be able to have, you know, 2 buses running, one starting in September for $123,000 contribution, I think is just it's incredible. I mean, even the region, when we spoke to the folks of the region, they can't believe that we can do that at that price.
Thank you.
And it's because of that $100,000 grants for the next 5 years. I mean, that is the key grant. That how many municipalities receive that? Not that many. Remember, you had a number last time.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe it was 11.
11, and we were one of the 11, and nobody else in the region received it, right?
No.
No, okay.
5 applied.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, we ready to call the vote? I'm sorry, Councilor Wayne?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to reiterate some information that's not in this report that we received a couple of weeks ago or whatever, but our ridership is up 83% year over year. So the residents of our community are really taking to the transportation. Piggybacking on the comments of Mrs. Cook, seniors are looking for opportunities of utilizing the transit service, and for $123,000 of our contribution for the town, I think it's money well spent.
Thank you, Councilor.
Can I just ask a quick question? Part of this involvement of seniors also involves the opportunity to attend their places of worship on Sundays. Do we have that opportunity now through the transit system?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, actually, we haven't provided service on Sundays. Not all municipalities have, but it would be, we are considering it because it's not just this request. We've had, I don't know, a dozen or so requests for church services and so forth. So we are looking at perhaps implementing a on-demand service where basically it's only you basically schedule a ride and we'll put as many people on the bus at the same time, so it's just a call out. It's not a conventional route.
Right. And I believe we had a request from a private citizen tonight that we are going to put that council directed staff to come forward with the report on the running of specialized transit on Sundays and holidays.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Just, if I could just add to that, so what is happening now, and we've had issues with this, so Welland, the St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, so forth, they do run on Sundays, so what happens is they will drop at our border, and we have had employees of businesses walking very far distances to get to work because we do not supply the service. But
Okay, thank you. Okay, ready for the vote? Madam Clerk?
So moved by Councillor Wink, second by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that Council received the Pelham Transit Update Concept Paper and that the second bus be implemented as per the Community Transportation Grant Program in September of 2019 as outlined in the 2019 operating budget. I will call for the vote alphabetically by surname, and you say yay or nay, depending on your vote. Councillor Cholfie.
Yes.
I'm marking it in two places, so Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
The motion carries unanimously.
Excellent. I read this?
No, you can sign it now.
No, I just have to sign. Motion carries, you're right. All right. Okay, moving on. Motion put forward by Councillor Hildebrand, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that council receive the concept sheet Meridian Community Center gymnasium fee update, and that a custodial fee of $35 per hour be included in the 2019 fees and charges, excuse me, and be charged when necessary for all rentals of all facilities. Discussion on the motion. All right. Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Yeah.
Schofield.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, where it says $35 per hour be included in the 2019 fees and charges and be charged when necessary. Can you just give me a little bit on when necessary?
through you, Mr. Mayor, with the analysis, when necessary would mean if there is a large tournament, we know that there's going to be extra work for cleaning and so forth, that $35 an hour would be added to the tournament fee prior to it happening. So what does happen right now, every rental, we would have a deposit, which would cover any damages, any extra costs, and so forth. So, for instance, if someone made a huge mess and or did damage, the cost would come off that $100 fee, and then the remainder would be refunded if there is a remainder. So we do have a way of charging now if it is necessary.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, so then that fee will be determined by staff, like when necessary. Those, just look at the tournaments or things like.
You, Mr. Mayor, yes, it would be. When comparing the boards of education with the MCC, it is a little different in the operation. And as pointed out in the report, unlike a school, we're staffed 7 days a week. We also charge for equipment and equipment setup. There's a new fee in the charges and fees where the school does not charge for that. The weekday rates are twice the price as the MCC. So for instance, when it comes to the Basketball Association, they're actually paying twice the price every night of the week, which they are renting 2 gyms most every night. So to charge a extra fee on a weekend, they're already paying double the price during the week, which they came to us originally. It sounds bad that they're paying twice the price, but they did come up with the original rate. So, and also we require a deposit. So if there are any charges or additional cleanup and so forth, the deposit, the funds would come off the deposit.
Yeah, and last question. It just doesn't seem that $100 for a deposit is quite enough for any kind of damage. You break a window, that could easily be done, or anything. Like $100 is not really a lot these days.
So, through you, Mr. Mayor, sorry. It's not only the $100, they would also be charged.
Oh, okay.
So any association, whether it's hockey, figure skating, lacrosse, basketball, they're responsible for anyone that they bring into the building. And if there are damages done, the association, immediately they will be told this happened, and we have cameras, so we can pretty well tell you exactly when it happened. They will be charged. We invoice them for the damages, and they would not be coming back unless the invoice would be paid. So we do have ways of recouping costs.
Okay. So on this motion, I've already read it. All those in favor of this motion, and all those against. Okay. You guys didn't vote?
Yeah, we did. You just didn't look.
Okay, motion carried. Okay, presentation and consideration of bylaws, Monday, March 18th. Okay, so a motion put forward by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Pelham, having given due consideration to the following bylaws, do now read a first, second, and third time and do pass same. Excuse me. And that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and seal the bylaws. Bylaw 4082, 2019, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 4068, 2019, confirming various appointments to boards, commissions, and committees of the town of Pelham, and to appoint members to the Beautification Committee, Schedule E, and to appoint members to the Welland/Pelham Chamber of Commerce, Schedule K, and to replace the council representative to the Pelham Business Association, Schedule L, and to appoint members to the Pelham Summerfest Committee, Schedule N, and to appoint members to the Pelham Public Art Committee, Schedule 0, or O, I guess. Bylaw 4083, 2019, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 1136, 1987, as amended for lands located between Summersides Boulevard and Port Robinson Road, west of Lameti Drive, legally described as part of lots 169 and 167, being Part 1, 59R-16096, Part 1, 59R-16072, Part 2, 59R-15596, and Part 1, 59R-15462, in the town of Pelham from the agricultural A zone to a site-specific residential multiple 1 RM1-287 zone. And bylaw 4084-2019 being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the supplemental agreement to the computer-aided fire dispatch agreement dated April 13th, 2018 with the city of St. Catharines. Any discussion on any that was just read? Seeing none, I call the motion. All those in favor? All opposed is none. Motion carries. Motion put forward by Councillor Trophy, seconded by Councillor Wink. Whereas council is committed to act responsibly and transparently in carrying out its fiduciary responsibilities to the citizens of the town of Pelham, therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to provide a report detailing the financial operation of the community center. The detailed report must consist of monthly and year-to-date financial disclosure and consist of the following categories. Revenue, 1, facility rental, MCC ice rental, internal and external, MCC multi-purpose internal and external, pickleball/volleyball internal and external, all public skate, all relative earnings dealing with the MCC, contractual agreements, Pelham Junior B, Pelham Minor Hockey, Pelham Panthers basketball, concession stands, caterers, contractual agreements with all other organizations, salaries, all related salaries dealing with the day-to-day operation of the MCC facility, full-time and part-time employees, operating costs, all related costs dealing with the day-to-day operation of the MCC facility, including but not limited to hydro gas maintenance, parking lot maintenance, cleaning, and interest payment. And further, that staff be directed to provide a detailed MCC report by April 1st, 2019. And further, that no decisions regarding the 2019 budget be considered by council until such time as said report has been provided by staff. Now, this is what we...
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the budget was considered in the consent agenda.
Yeah.
So you may ask for an amendment to remove that last paragraph.
Okay. So the budget has already been considered in the consent agendas and passed. And further, so we need to remove, and further that no decisions regarding the 2019 budget be considered by council until such time as said report has been provided by staff. And as the motioner of this motion, right? Oh, wait, I'm sorry, the mover, is not present.
Actually, it was switched before the meeting. Councillor Trophy is the mover and Councillor Wink is the seconder.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. So we have to remove that paragraph?
Well, you would need to call for an amendment to remove the paragraph because it's been presented.
Okay, so we need a mover to remove the last paragraph that starts "and further." Is there a mover to this?
No, I'll speak on that if I can.
Okay.
That one there, I think that got by me, and I don't think it needs to be removed. This place that we're talking about, the MCC, it's the biggest asset the town has at $30+ million. And for us to prove an operating budget without having all these answers, by waiting an extra week or two, I don't think it's going to hurt. I know things are in the process of moving forward, and getting costs down and putting together a report. But I think it's very important that we have what we're asking for prior to approving the operating budget.
Council, we approved the operating budget in the consent items.
This was brought up earlier today, and it said it was going to be brought up to the meeting as we wished. And now that got in there before when I missed it. That was my fault that I missed it.
Well, like I said, the council, everyone sat here, the council approved all consent agendas, and part of the consent agenda was the 2019 budget. Yes, Councillor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So why don't we ask then, if there's seemingly confusion, why wouldn't we ask right now, council members, if they agree with passing or thinking that they passed something earlier that clearly we may not have wanted to do?
Clerk, what's the ruling on that, please?
Mr. Mayor, I can't make a ruling. However, I will state that the email that I sent this morning said if this paragraph was to remain, there needed to be a motion to lift the budget consideration or to consider this motion sooner on the agenda.
So this should have been pulled forward then. So why was it put at the very end?
Because someone needed to pull it forward.
So it's put at the end of the agenda because that's the way the procedural bylaw is set. So as I explained in my email this morning, if it needs to be moved, it has to be through an amendment to the agenda. So that it would appear before the resolution to approve the budget.
So further to that, would it not be a wise idea to ask across the board here with all the councillors here, except for one, what their feelings are on this?
Well, it seems to me like you're supposed to read these reports before we come to council, and you should have known that we were passing that 2019 budget was in a consent agenda.
This got added today. What Councillor Chofie just alluded to was just added today.
And that's because it was removed on the weekend without both of our consents.
And
the
put
email
back-
said that both of us had to respond.
And
And that's why it was
put
agreed to
back
be
in.
put on there.
And
No,
put
that's just
back
not
in.
right.
Well, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, when it didn't have the second, because it wasn't moved and seconded, it was removed. Unfortunately, one councillor did not respond, but the seconder did.
But I responded, and my response said I would agree to it, providing that we had the information this evening, and we still don't have it. So it means mine's actually moved as well. And it said it right in that email.
Mr. Mayor, the only other option is for reconsideration of the, you would need to have, so I'll just, through reconsideration, need a motion to reconsider, and that would be the motion to reconsider the approval of the operating budget.
Okay, so we need a mover then. So, okay, we'll need a mover to reconsider the operating budget, seconded by Councillor Hahn.
Sorry, who's the mover?
Mover is Councillor Chofie.
Considered at the next meeting.
No. Okay, and it will be considered at the next meeting, so the next cow meeting or the next?
Council.
Next council meeting.
Which is what date?
What date is that? April 1st.
Okay, just to make it clear, sorry, so at the next council meeting, it'll be considered whether the budget's approved or not?
Madam Clerk?
Yes, so through you, through a motion to reconsider, you will need to make a motion to reconsider the operating budget at the April 1st meeting. So Goes to the first meeting held thereafter under the procedural bylaw. So you need to call for a vote or discussion on that.
So a vote on the motion to reconsider the budget at the next April 1st meeting of council. Is that right?
Yes, I'm just trying to figure out the order because right now the motion on the floor is this one. So you need to deal with this motion first and then a motion to reconsider because this one takes precedent.
This motion first.
So call the vote on this motion first and then the motion to reconsider.
Okay. So this motion is, should I, well,
You don't have to read it again.
No.
It's as you stated.
okay. So this motion, I'm going to just read the first part of it. Therefore, be it resolved that staff be directed to provide a report detailing the financial operation of the community center. The detailed report must consist of monthly and year-to-date financial disclosure and consist of the following categories, which we all have. Okay, so to vote on, so positive vote, be it resolved that staff be directed. So all those in favor of this motion, raise your hands. Okay, and all those opposed, motion carries.
Can I just ask for clarification?
I'm sorry?
Can I just ask for clarification?
Okay.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to make sure that the report we bring back is what council is looking for. So if you're looking for a detailed report, we're assuming it's the 2018 numbers?
Correct.
Okay. So the monthly and year-to-date financial disclosure of 2018. Okay, that's fine. That's what we're working on.
Okay.
Okay.
So now, so that one's done.
Now you need a motion to reconsider.
That'd be till December 31st, you're right.
Yeah, yeah.
The motion that you're reconsidering is the cow recommendation. I just need to get to the one it is.
So do I need a mover and a second?
So I have a mover and a seconder.
Oh, yeah, okay,
I
that's
just want to state what the motion is.
Okay.
Let me take the right meeting. So that is going to be the recommendations arising from the Committee of the Whole meeting of March 11th, Special Cow 03-2019.
Why don't you just read the motion?
Library and the budget. You read that.
The recommendation.
That's what I showed you.
So that the recommendations of the Special Committee of the Whole meeting of March 11th, 2019, be considered at the April 1st council meeting.
Did the library budget be held?
Is that the motion?
And it's moved by Councillor Cholfi, seconded by Councillor Hahn.
Okay. Discussion on this motion? Seeing none?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just a point of clarification or whatever, and I agree with Councillor Cholfi and Councillor Hahn on this. We also approved the Pelham Transit after the fact. The Pelham Transit update, that was part of the operating expenses. So I have no problem in lifting this and revisiting the entire operating budget. Not the entire operating budget, approving the operating budget at the next council meeting.
Okay. Any comments, Bob, or are you okay? No?
I'm okay approving.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. All those in favor of this motion? Oh, did I already say that?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
yes, you did.
Already did. Okay. Okay, so what do we got left?
Actually, no, you already did the vote on this motion. I need the motion on the
No,
reconsider.
okay, so I
need you to
didn't call a
vote on the
motion yet.
reconsider.
So on the motion to move to
To
April.
reconsider, yeah.
Reconsider on April 1st at the next council meeting. All those in favor? Okay, and none opposed. Thank you. Okay. So, motion put forward by Councillor Wink seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time and passed, being a bylaw number 4085, 2019, to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of Council of the Town of Pelham at its regular meeting held on the 18th day of March, 2019. All those in favor? All those against? Motion carries. I need one more second. Stop. Okay, and be it motion put forward by Councillor Hildebrand, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that this regular meeting of March 18th, 2019 be adjourned until the next regular meeting scheduled for April 1st, 2019 at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? All those opposed? Meeting is adjourned. So we'll take a 5 minutes recess, and then we'll